Sentry mode activated. Target acquired.
Hey there, hunters. Yeah, I still play Monster Hunter, sorta. Today I want to talk about the gunner meta setups for the prep for the Sunbreak release, since PC now has USJ armor, and I really don't think we're going to be getting any more weapons and armor until Sunbreak. I do want to explain what we're using and why, so there's going to be a little bit of preface here. Apologies. There's going to be a lot of information regurgitated from my previous videos, but I wanted to do this as like a one and only vid for pre-Sunbreak info. And rather than go over each of the armor sets, which would take forever, I'm just going to leave the links to the sets in the descriptions, so you can either use the Imgur links or the Monster Hunter Rise builder link to import them all into the builder and check them out yourself. I feel it's more important to discuss, the MOs, the weapons, and the skills instead, and kind of why we're using stuff rather than just show you, hey, this is what I'm using. And of course, there are a bajillion ways to make every single set and make very similar sets depending on your charms and stuff, and you don't have to have perfect charms, but this group of sets will assume that you do. So if you're looking for non-min-max sets, I'd recommend using the armor set search in the description to import your own charms and then try to build a similar set that way. You can get very close to min-max sets with any charm that has a total of like 4 usable level 2 slots, and by that I mean like attack 2 and 2 level 2 slots, or attack 2, wex 1 and a level 2 slot, or anything that has a total of like 4 level 2 decos. I can't make sets for everyone because everyone has different charms, so that's going to be on you. I'm just going to assume people are using min-max charms at this point, sorry. And so without the armor sets here, let's get into the gunner setups, explain what we're using and why. So I'm going to start with bowguns, and if you have any questions regarding bowguns, please check out my bowgun bible for Rise. This should have all the information you can want in Rise, but I've delayed this so much already, so let's just dive into these raw bowguns. So pretty much, I've given up on normal bowguns. So yes, they aren't so awful that there's no reason to use them, but I just can't find a situation where I would prefer it over something like Pierce 2 or Spread 3, especially now here on PC where Pierce gets extra ticks. It's really hard for normal ammo to compete, unfortunately. Early game, sure, go ahead, use normal since all the normal up gear is really easy to get, but once you get like HR unlocked, there's no reason for it. Even on small monsters, Pierce is still gross and has more effective range. The only reason why I could ever see to use normals is if you ran out of ammo for like a sticky or slice bowgun, in which case you're not really building for normals anyways. So I'm just not feeling them, I'm gonna move on to other ammos. So spreads. Spreads are great. While arguably worse than Pierce at this point, since again Pierce got those extra ticks, spreads are still very strong. And while they're typically the close range ammo, they actually can get some really good range when you have ballistics on. Ballistics is incredibly strong with spread as it extends their critical distance by a very large amount, and it's not the hardest thing to fit on a set either. And while ballistics is not mandatory, I do highly recommend at least 1 or 2 points of it over something like attack 3 or some of the other smaller damage boosts. Now spread bowguns do have plenty of good options to choose from. Heavy bowgun can use either Magnamalo's Dread Volley, which has good sockets, good raw, spread 3 clip 5, slice backup, sticky 3 backup, like it just has it all. And if you're going to be using this bowgun, I do recommend gearing it for crit, since the extra level 2 slot is enough to get it to go to crit I7 and wex 3, so you can sit on 90% crit rate pretty effectively. The Tigrex bowgun is another amazing choice, since it has the same clip 5 spread 3 as Mango's, but has much higher raw, and 2 sticky 3s as backup, which is enough to guarantee 1 KO effectively in a match. It's really strong, and you can actually get 2 KOs if you do enough shoulder checks. The downside to it is that it only has 1 level 1 deco slot and negative affinity. So rather than gear this thing for crit, it's easier to go full raw attack 7 and slap on wex just to negate the crit. Because attack 7 gives you percentage raw increase, higher raw bowguns do want it more. Now the last spread heavy bowgun you can run is Venom Hail, which is Puke's heavy bowgun. Now while the raw in this is a lot lower than Tigrex or Mango's, it does have a clip 8 of spread 3 when you have the Rampage skill on, which is amazing. You can forego spare shot altogether and just cram on more attack to make up for it. So you have 3 more rounds in the chamber compared to other options, and you're not really have much of a downside besides the fact that you don't have backup ammo. Now speaking of spare shot, sorry I'm going to go on a side tangent, it's kind of hit and miss here with spreads. While I do like spare shot, it's definitely not the powerhouse it was in World. I mentioned before, but I'm going to reiterate since we're going to be going through a lot of the past information before Sunbreak. The reason why spare shot was so strong on World is because our rate of fire and our reload speeds were much slower compared to Rise. World fire rate was like 0.86 seconds or 1 second at best compared to Rise's 0.63, and the reload speed was almost 2 seconds in World since we were pretty much always using normal reload, and there's a couple situations we're using fast, but not often. And in Rise, the reload is like 1 second, maybe less, maybe it's 0.8, I can't remember. But anyway, it's a lot faster than in World. So what Spare Shot did was prolong that 2-second reload time and make it so you had to reload much less often, which would save, compounding 4, 8, 12, 14 seconds of reloading per hunt. And that's a lot of time spared for basically nothing. And Spare Shot was basically free in World. Remember, Xeno Gamma in base game and the Fatalis Armor in Iceborne had it as just the set bonus. And then you had the Spare Shot charm as well. So it's much easier to get compared to like Rise, where the armor pieces that have Spare Shot pretty much only have Spare Shot. So you're going to be sacrificing potential attack or crit gear to get Spare Shot. And since Rise has much faster fire rates and reload speeds, that delaying of your reload matters much less. And while it is still a DPS increase, now that you have to compare it to losing something like Attack 4, which is 5% more raw, or maybe some more crit, comparatively it's much less effective in Rise than in World. It still has its uses, just not really for spread or more the raw MOs. It's great for MOs that have very limited capacities like Elemental, Slice, Sticky, Cluster, and Wyvern and stuff like that. It's also good for MOs that have tiny clip sizes like clip 2 or clip 3 because those reload twice as much as MOs that are clip 5 to 8, and it becomes more effective to use it there. Anyway, back to spreads, I'm sorry. So you can use Spare Shot if you want, but it's effectively a same DPS as getting like Attack 4 or something. So depending on what charms you have, you can use it or not. It's not a big deal. I do tend to throw it on because I can't really fit anything else super important. Alright, continuing on with spreads. Now the light bowgun has significantly less options for spreads. There's effectively one. Mango's light bowgun, sadly, is the only light bowgun that can use spread 3 effectively. And by effectively, that means you still can't walk and reload. It does have clip size 5 for spread 3, which is, it's amazing. It's heavy bowgun levels. It's got good raw, slots, slice, and sticky backup. It's the whole package. It's an amazing bowgun. But yeah, sadly, no other options. Rampage light bowgun almost come close, but not really. And the only thing that you can really use besides this is Juratotus' bowgun that has rapid fire spread 2s, only because you can scale spread 2s with spread up and rapid fire up. But honestly, I still wouldn't recommend it. It's still far less effective DPS compared to just spread 3s, and it's got a smaller clip size, so there's more reloads required as well. I've always liked the Juratotus bowgun since it has a lot of good MO options with sticky 3s, para, sleep, spread 3s, all that jazz. It's just not quite good enough to compete with Mango's right now, but I am holding out that in the G-rank version of the game with Sunbreak, the upgrade gets a nice boost, so I'm building the set for it for now and hoping that it becomes good later. Alright, so that was a lot of spread talk, I'm sorry. I am going to need to break this up into multiple videos it seems. But let's get into Pierce bowguns for now. So Pierce is gross, as I have mentioned before, since we get more ticks on the PC. They can compete, if not outperform, pretty much most other MOs when used properly. Thankfully, there's only one option to choose from here. Heavy bowgun has the Baroth bowgun, Thorn Cannon. You'd think it'd be Nargacuga's, but it's not. Baroth has 10 less affinity, but almost 40 more raw. It's nutty. And you're definitely going to be using Pierce 3s on heavy bowguns since they're so much stronger than Pierce 2s. Don't bother with 2s and 1s. So the only other maybe option for a heavy bowgun is Kushalis de Oro Grande, which does have more raw, but loses its level 2 slot, which is pretty big. And its Pierce 3 has a clip size of 5 instead of 6, and you can't walk and shoot nor walk and reload. So if you're doing group runs, you can probably use this since you're going to be using Deora's Soul with the Rampage skill to get more affinity. But again, the only thing I can really see this for is in groups. And even then, I'm not too sure. Honestly, I'd probably stick with Baroth's. Light bowgun, of course, everybody knows Night Owl, Nargacuga's. It's the only bowgun with rapid fire Pierce 2s that's on a decent clip size. Actually, it might just be the only bowgun with rapid fire Pierce 2s. But like, if that wasn't good enough, it's got everything going for it. 40% base affinity is just gross, a level 2 slot, solid raw, and of course the rapid fire Pierce 2s are on clip 4 with walk and shoot, which is great. Pierce are extra nasty here on PC since we can manipulate the tick rates with frame rate, which I agree is stupid, but it is what it is, not technically an exploit. So yeah. So when you're making your armor sets for Pierce, I do still recommend ballistics, but only up to rank 2. The first 2 ranks of ballistics make your minimal critical distance shorter, basically meaning that you can get closer to the monster and have full damage, which is great for Pierce because monsters are going to get up in your face anyways, and you don't want to be losing that 20% damage for being inside crit distance. The 3rd rank of ballistics only increases your critical distance on the back end so you can shoot further away, which I find unnecessary as you can stand halfway across the zone and hit with Pierce anyways. Ballistics is not super mandatory, but again, it's one of those quality of life skills that's just really hard to ignore. And if your choice is between 2 points of ballistics and like attack 2 or attack 3, I'm probably gonna go with ballistics. Okay, so standard raw MOs are done. Let's move on to some of the specialty MOs. Stickies. Everyone loves stickies, right? Stickies are fine to use as a primary source of damage in solo hunts, but you may run out of ammo and might have to restock or pick up berries. I say may, but it's almost guaranteed. In group hunts though, it's an easy win. Everyone knows the KO capabilities of sticky ammo, it's just nutty. The only downside to stickies is their actual damage per second is actually pretty low. People think they do a lot of damage, but they really don't. Anyway, sticky hits are really easy to throw together, but just make sure you have ammo up 3 and spare shot. These 2 are like mandatory. Most other MOs don't need these as a requirement, but stickies and slice do. Most sticky bowguns only have a clip size of 1 or 2, so the extra round in the chamber from ammo up does cut your reload times down significantly, and with the limited amount of ammo you have, you really need spare shot to just have enough ammo to get through a hunt. Outside of that, raw and artillery up skills and you're Gucci. So for heavy bowguns, we're going to be using Rajang's bowgun. With sticky 2 rampage skill, this thing holds 4 sticky 3s, which is just absurd, and 5 if you have ammo up. While Tigrex has more raw and more clusters as backup, Rajang just throws out way more stickies. Rajang also has 2 para 2s, so you can chain a KO, para, and KO again. And I'd say honestly, the only reason to use Tigrex is if you really want the spreads as backup ammo that can actually deal damage. But for group hunts especially, Rajang Heavy Bowgun is just KO king of this game. You do have another fun option though with the Meteor Cannon. While it is weaker, this bowgun does have sleep 2s and para 2s as well as Wyvern, allowing you to chain, KOs, paras, sleeps, and then use Wyvern for sleep wake up explosions. It's actually a really fun and hectic playstyle as you have to cycle and craft a ton of ammo all the time. It's kind of like playing a puzzle. But yeah, it's a good choice there too. On light bowgun side, sadly, there's no real options here, but Anchinet's light bowgun will be your best bet for pure stickies, just due to the huge amount of raw it has. But honestly, I don't see why you'd want to do that. Clip 1 of sticky 3s is pretty poor. I mean, you get 2 with ammo up, and there's no chance you have enough ammo to get through a hunt with just stickies. And since Anchineth can't really use clusters, you don't really have suitable alternative MOs. Magnum Mauls is probably your better option for a solo experience because it has a clip size of 4 on Slice ammo as backup, which only scales off raw anyway. So you can use your stickies and then use Slice to finish off a monster. You'd never want to use sticky 1s or sticky 2s, even on rapid fire, because they're only on a 2-burst volley and their damage is so much worse than sticky 3s that it's never worth using, especially since they use the same crafting items. So things like Basil Goose and Tigrex's light bowguns are just not good options, because Basil only has cluster 2s as a fallback option, which aren't good either, and Tigrex doesn't even have sticky 3s. I'm going to go into clusters really quick, but it's going to be a short tail. Clusters are not good in Rise. They deal pretty mediocre damage and have very few craftables, and they take too long to shoot and reload. The only use for clusters is the Cat Cannon Heavy Bowgun, since it has level shot clusters which allow it to shoot like normal ammo. Unfortunately, the Cat Cannon can't really use any other ammos, so there's a high chance you're going to run out of ammo mid-hunt and you're going to have to go back and craft more to finish it. So I mean, yeah, it works, it's not the most efficient thing around and it's fun, but it's terrible. Light bowgun don't really have cluster options. Sure, they can use cluster 2s, but cluster 2s are terrible. Even as a backup ammo, they're bad. They have huge recoil, and even shooting them off vaulting or fanning maneuver takes too long for what they provide. So I don't particularly recommend cluster bowguns, unless you just really want to use that Cat Cannon. Last on the raw MOs is the Slice MO. Slice is in an interesting spot, with light bowguns being absurdly OP and heavy bowgun being kinda whatever. What makes it so nasty on light bowgun is that rapid fire on Slice is a 2-burst at 0.7 times damage each, but since you can get rapid fire up, it's effectively 0.84 times damage each, so there's only a small penalty to the damage for essentially double the ammo. This also counteracts a small clip size, as it's going to be acting like basically double clip sizes. Thanks to spare shot and rapid fire, light bowgun can actually get through most of the non-apex hunts on just slicing ammo alone. Now, compared to heavy bowgun, which can effectively get the same damage output through charge shots since they grant 80% more damage, they lose out on more DPS since it takes so much longer to shoot charge shots over rapid fire shots. Plus, it's impossible to get perfect inputs on charge shots compared to just, matching your button on rapid fire. Heavy bowguns also tend to have problems with their slice ammo. Most bowguns only hold either 2 or 3, or they can't reach fast recoil and fastest reload in like Magnum case, which is a huge DPS loss, even though it has a great clip size. So yeah, I just stick to light bowgun for slice. It outperforms heavy bowgun pretty much in all aspects. Alright, so that's the raw bowguns, what to use with them, and kind of what we're using. Don't forget to check the Bible and the sets in the description below if you're going to be looking into builds before Sunbreak. But thank you all for watching, and good luck out there, hunters.